But what is a copy? I talked about the mimeograph machine. This bee on the flower is a photograph that I took a few years ago at the Garfield Park Conservatory in Chicago, where I live. So, when I mentally asked you to hold up the original and the mimeograph sheet, and I said, which one's the original, which one's the copy, you all immediately said, yeah, we could tell. So which one of these bees is the original, and which ones are the copies? Hard to tell is an understatement. In fact, they're all copies. The original was on the memory card in my camera. And I had to copy those images onto my computer in order to do some editing, and then crop it down, put it into this PowerPoint presentation. So I've made, 3, 4, 5, 7 copies along the way between the original and now. My road is littered with copies of this thing. We live in a time where it is vanishingly easy to make exact ones and zeros digital copies of things. Videos, still images, Microsoft Word documents, narrated PowerPoint slides. Those of you who were here earlier know the little joke behind that. So, if it is very easy to make a copy of something, guess what? People do it. People do it all the time. So let's talk a little bit about what is and isn't copyrighted. This is something that I'd like you to get as background information, and then we're going to get into the actual useful stuff. So what things are not copyrighted? Here is Ted Wells' The Smiling Terror. I can't find anyone in the poster for this movie actually smiling. So I'm wondering if he's off screen somewhere and all these people are afraid. They also appear to be negotiating over a potato. That can't be a chunk of gold. That looks like a nice russet potato. But obviously this film did really well in 1929. Things that are created by the federal government, no copyright attaches to them. You can use them freely for whatever purpose. You can make a copy of those things. Yet someone will always ask the question at the end of our session, well, what about I'm a state employee? Does that apply to us as state employees? Federal government only. And I'll tell you a story in a couple seconds about Thomas Jefferson and how you can thank him. If it's been 70 years after the creator's lifetime and copyright has not been renewed, you've all heard the phrase public domain works, right? So it used to be, here's a story. Thomas Jefferson in 1788 starts working with a team of other scholars, lawyers, idea people on the first copyright policies for the United States of America. And in there, they say that we have to have patents. So people who come up with useful ideas can benefit from those ideas themselves. And a patent will last for 20 years after you register it with our office. We should also have copyright. So patents, you can take out an exclusivity license on an idea itself. Copyright means that if you express an idea and put it into a fixed format, you can be exclusive about who does something with that information. So if I'm Ben Franklin and I write a newspaper article and put it into Poor Richard's Almanac or the Philadelphia Bee in 1793, then I can expect that other people will not make copies of that newspaper article without asking me for permission. Copyright lasts for 25 years from the time you state that copyright exists, and you have to register something with the Copyright Office of the newly formed federal government in order for that to happen. So that is one of the earliest copyright policies in the world, was the United States copyright policy. Flash forward to the 20th century, and copyright has been extended several times. So in the middle of the 20th century, in the 1940s, copyright was extended to 50 years after the death of the creator. So I create something, I have copyright on that thing during my lifetime, and then after I die, My copyright still survives me by 50 years. Fast forward to the late 1990s, early 2000s, and the folks at the Walt Disney Company realize that the character Mickey Mouse, who appeared in Steamboat Willie all those years ago, it's going to be 50 years after Walt passed away, and Mickey is going to go into the public domain, where anyone can use Mickey's image for free for any purpose. And the folks at the Walt Disney Company saw the dollar signs flying out the back door. So they lobbied heavily to get Congress to increase the term of copyright beyond 50 years. So we got the Sonny Bono Copyright Extension Act, which moved copyright to what it is now, 70 years after your death. What that means is that things from William Faulkner and Ernest Hemingway are only just now coming into the public domain. Also, what's not copyright if the owner gives up some or all of the rights to the work? Linus Torvald, fantastically skilled computer coder. Back in the day, he wrote the computer code for an operating system called Linux. It runs a whole bunch of back-end business systems today. And he wanted other people to be able to go into the source code for Linux and play around with it, add to it, improve upon it, fix bugs in it. He's the one who coined the term open source. Now, he wanted to give up his copyright to this software that he had created. Purposefully, he wanted to give up his rights. What he had to do was sit down with an international intellectual property lawyer for a week. And they crafted a document that is 39 pages of Times New Roman 8-point single-spaced font, half-inch margins all the way around. Dense, legal licensing terminology. And then Linus at the end signed it. And by doing so, he gave up all his rights, created the category of open source software. And today, there are many different versions of Linux. There's a version called Red Hat that's a commercial software where people are selling their version of it. But the original kernel of Linux is also open source. Other people are still playing around with it, adding to it, improving upon it, and the coding community is that much richer today. So these are some of the things that aren't governed by copyright.